Done. Tracer. As the meme prophets on my Discord server had foretold, Blizzard had decided to rework D.Va only a month after the release of my initial guide. After getting over the sadness and depression from spending all that effort making a guide, and from the begging requests of my subscribers, here I am with a reworked version of the only D.Va guide you will ever need. Rather than hammering my own accolades like I did last time, I'd like to give thanks to everyone that helped with the creation of the reworked version of this guide, be it for footage, write-up, or general advice. All of the social media links for these amazing top 500 and Grandmaster D.Va players are available in the description, alongside a link to the written version of this guide that you can read if you prefer that. D.Va's been through a lot of changes through her release. She went from a very poor and unviable pick, and after reworking her matrix sat comfortably as a damage mitigation off-tank that could use her mobility to dive and clear areas for her team. After becoming meta, receiving buffs, nerfs, and now a rework, D.Va's found her place as an offensive bruiser with lesser capabilities and damage mitigation. D.Va's strengths revolve around her high mobility and large zone control with her boosters and or ultimate. However, D.Va is limited by her large hitbox and crit box and her much less suitable matrix for extended fights. D.Va, after her rework, is best classified as a bruiser. Bruiser characters specialise in both offensive and defensive characteristics, with D.Va's combination of surprising burst and damage mitigation through Matrix giving her great offensive and defensive capabilities in tandem. With a realistic DPS potential around 100 damage per second, D.Va is able to deliver good damage within her effective range. These dual, full auto style shotgun weapons have a large spread, but are a primary method of dealing damage, so using them optimally is the best way to maximise the damage you deal in your mecha. Outside of her mech, D.Va is equipped with a light blaster, dealing 14 damage per shot and firing 7 of these shots per second, with a magazine size of 20. These 20 shots have no damage drop off and act as a projectile rather than a hit scan shot like her cannons do. Just like Mercy, these bullets can deal a surprising amount of damage to unsuspecting enemies. Many people consider D.Va's damage to be weak, mainly due to the damage drop-off distance present in her shotguns and the nerfs that have occurred over time to her weapons. However, it must be noted that this drop-off calculation does not apply to targets under 10 meters away, so you still have a large zone of consistent damage potential. When firing as Mini D.Va though, remember that the closer you are to the target, the easier it might be to land shots, as there is less distance for the target to move as you fire, but it also makes it easier for enemies to hit you. Try and stay out of your opponent's effective range as you maneuver around and call your mech back. Whilst I won't rehash the same joke, staying alive as Mini D.Va is your #1 priority. Due to the nature of D.Va's weapons, and the way damage in this game is calculated, max range shots by D.Va will still deny shield regeneration on characters such as Zarya, Zenyatta or Symmetra, and will also deny Mercy's passive. Additionally, because Mini D.Va's bullets are projectiles, and Mechless D.Va sports a very small hitbox, you are able to peek shoot around corners. This is a common skill found in many FPS games, both of the past and the present, and by peek shooting, it allows you to deal damage without risking your own skin in the middle of a fight. On top of the 50% move speed penalty, D.Va also receives 50% knockback resistance while shooting. It may sound useless, but it is definitely an important factor to consider when against characters like Lucio, as they will only boop you half the distance. Before her rework, Defense Matrix used to be the epitome of her kit, and D.Va's playstyle revolved around effective use of her matrix, blocking damage for her allies and saving her own skin. Now that her kit has been reworked, it is no longer the primary focus of her kit, but instead serves as a simple offhand factor to it. She can still block the following ultimates, but most of these cannot be blocked for the full duration. Defense Matrix is still undoubtedly one of the strongest abilities in the game, but key usage of it has become even more important than ever as you have less matrix to spare. An underutilized feature of D.Va's defense matrix is blocking fire focused towards ulting teammates. If your friendly fire is ready for a game-winning barrage, ensure success by matrixing them as they unleash hell on the enemy team. This works with any channel ultimate, such as Tactical Visor, Barrage, Deadeye, Whole Hog, or Configuration Tank. Given enough time and practice, you should be able to learn common attack cycles for characters. The easiest example to showcase is against Tracer, who is a burst of damage for 1 second, then a second of reloading. Against characters like these, you can efficiently cycle your matrix by tapping the mouse instead of holding it, to prolong the amount of time you can deny their shots for. As a more generalised guideline, however, it's best to flash matrix up when your opponent shoots, then drop it when they reload or ready their weapon again. Doing so will allow your matrix to last longer and possibly change the outcome of a fight. A key facet of D.Va's matrix that needs to be understood is the nature of it. Unlike Ryan's shield and Xayah bubble, D.Va's matrix blocks damage in front of her rather than behind or around her. This often means that D.Va may be better at the back of the team rather than at the front leading the charge with matrix, as it is often a bad idea unless you're diving with someone specific in mind. Boosters for D.Va are her primary way of disengaging and engaging into fights. She can turn and change directions at will, damaging and knocking back enemies, with each enemy being damaged and knocked back only a single time during a boost. One quick and underutilized technique for boosters is flying upwards. It might sound silly, but in most scenarios, unless you're the only target, boosting up in the air and then dropping back down is an easy way to re-enter a fight, and gives you a second of breathing room so you can choose the best target to drop back down on. As a D.Va player, you should use the knockback portions of D.Va's boosters to knock back enemies as they approach, or to clear some space for yourself or your team. If a Winston engages on your team, deny his leap with your own boosters and put him in an awkward position to deny his splash damage as he lands. Another trick for booster usage that very few people outside the most experienced D.Va mains utilise is cancelling boosters as soon as possible. Like most, but not all channels in the game, the ability cooldown will only start being restored at the end of the channel. By cancelling boosters as soon as you're not using them, you can shave off time that you'd otherwise not have boosters up for and generally create more efficient use of them. Whilst this is a known bug by the Blizzard team and definitely will get patched in the future, you're actually able to booster then melee without cancelling the boost movement at the start of your booster usage if you're fast enough. This can be used to finish off 55 or HP or lower health targets without cancelling flight, or for a surprise booster plus melee combination for an 85 damage burst. Similarly, but not a bug this time, you are able to animation cancel a melee attack straight into using boosters as an extremely fast and reliable method of dealing the 55 damage booster melee burst combo. As soon as your melee animation begins, you can begin boosting, dealing the melee damage, even though your animation is longer playing, and then dealing additional booster damage as you bump into your target. Micro missiles were the new addition to D.Va's kit in replacement for a weaker defense matrix. Whilst it sounds odd, the new skill adds both defensive and offensive capabilities. Rather than matrixing yourself or your teammates, you instead using these bad boys to blow the attacking enemy up. The ability also has a great offensive usage and can be used to dive and burst squishy targets quite reliably. In combination with our previous tip about boosters involving flying upwards to create space for yourself, micro missiles can be used on the downfall to dive bomb unsuspecting enemy players, or to create an easy sightline for you to land a full volley onto an opponent hiding behind a shield or an object. Whilst D.Va's cannons are hit scan, her projectile missile volley is not. Ensure that when you are using them you focus on aiming with the one type of damage in your mind, depending on the range your target is at. At longer ranges, it'd be better to focus on aiming your missiles by leading your shots at the expense of cannon damage because it is weaker at longer ranges anyway. It is important to note that micro missiles are a channeled cast, meaning that they will be interrupted by CC but not by yourself. If you get CC'd before a single missile is fired, the cast time is reset and your cooldown is refunded. Because you cannot cancel the missile barrage once you start it, it is easy for targets such as Genji or Xayah to take advantage of the volley and either reflect it or gain charge respectively. You can bait these abilities or save yourself by looking at the side or straight upwards so the missiles miss them instead. A technique that's often underrated with micro missiles is the potential to farm up ult more quickly. A fully accurate volley does 162 damage to one target, so with her missiles alone it would take 8 full volleys to fully charge a D.Va bomb, if you are accurate. Combining these with her guns and the rest of her kit, you can farm ults quickly off targets such as Winston or Hog. As her only long-range damage tool, missiles are a reliable way of farming her ult quickly at distances her cannons cannot reliably hit people, and complement her ult charge well. While in pilot form, D.Va has the ability to cooldown a new mech, which will bring her back into a mecha with all of her cooldowns reset and she will be fully healed upon entering. Her defense matrix will also be restored to full charge. The ability has a small area of knockback and deals 50 damage to all enemies in the radius. Since a recent change, call mech channels can be interrupted by crowd control, resetting the channel and all ult charge towards calling a new mecha. Because of this, be careful calling your mech around Roadhog or McCree, as they can easily cancel your mecha call and force you to recharge your ult from zero. D.Va's call mech can slightly damage enemies, and also has a surprising amount of knockback. You can use this to knock back opponents off the map as you re-enter the mech, or give yourself some breathing room in a fight. You can change the direction you eject from your mech by holding the appropriate directional key. As you eject outwards, you will strafe in the direction you're holding. Additionally, you can eject whilst holding the jump key, which will allow you to eject at increased height. In the right scenarios, this can let you jump onto higher ledges or maneuver yourself away from characters like Reinhardt, which will try and kill you quickly after you leave your mecha. If anticipated and timed correctly, a mecha calling D.Va is able to completely negate CC effects from abilities such as Earth Shatter, and in very fringe cases, even the damage completely. Anticipates ults with your mecha call to rejoin the fight in your mech and assist your downed allies, as you will not get stunned yourself. Additionally, it is important to note that D.Va's mech actually only has 599 effective HP, as D.Va will be instantly demech once she hits 1 HP, not 0. Self-Destruct is D.Va's more acknowledged ultimate ability and takes longer to charge. Activating the ability pushes D.Va out of her mech into pilot form, setting the reactor into a mecha to explode. After 3 seconds, the mecha detonates, dealing 1000 damage in a 20 meter radius with a significant linear drop-off. The ult takes 1375 points to acquire and has strong offensive and defensive capabilities, but is often underutilized by most players. Activating your ult while standing still is almost always a no-no and will be much less effective. Mastering basic D.Va ult techniques is an easy way to make your ult looks cooler and net you more kills. Comboing your ultimate with another teammate is a quick and easy way to ensure more kills when your bomb does go off. Here's a few combos and how you can use them. Whilst really well known, the Reinhardt Earth Shatter plus D.Va bomb combo is quite a common one. This best works against an enemy Reinhardt. Simply put, toss your bomb behind the enemy Reinhardt, force him to turn his shield around, and then allow your own Reinhardt to Earth Shatter him and the rest of his team as the bomb goes off. In a similar fashion, against enemy Reinhardts, you can use Anna's Sleep Dart or McCree's Flashbang to create an opening for your bomb to explode and decimate the enemy team. Other than comboing with teammates, there are other ways that you can create effective ults, just by yourself. Nothing fancy is required, such as an Earth Shatter or Sleep Dart, just some use of your own intuition and appropriate analysis of the situation. Flicking your bomb into the air at the end of your boosters, angling them or nosediving them into the ground, or air bursting them above Rhine shields are all simple and effective ways that you can create much more effective ults. When using Self-Destruct, look at where your bomb should land to cover sightlines that enemies will commonly run to, and leave them no options for escape. If the enemy team has a shield to hide behind, try and either disable it, destroy it, or make sure that it explodes above the shield if possible. Whilst an exploding mecha is boosting, it will attempt to travel in the same direction relative to the starting trajectory it began its flight path on. This allows for some very sneaky and unique ults that ride up walls and ceilings to be made, as the bomb will try and continue its flight path even if it meets a wall. If you want some guides on how to utilise these sorts of techniques, refer to the playlist that will appear in a card in the top right.
My APN. This will. Let's drop it. I am taking the objective. I'm back in the fight.
Whilst it is included in the written version of this guide, it linked in the description below, and it was also included in the previous guide, many people had requested a matchups video to be included along with the video. Without wanting to drag on this guide video far too long, I will create a separate video detailing all of the D.Va matchups that are available. I aim to release it shortly after the release of this guide video, so don't worry. I'll add a card on screen now if you'd like to redirect yourself to watch the matchup video against D.Va. Rather than break this section down into map/team comps like I did in the previous guide, I will summarily talk about the different reasons you pick D.Va and the expectations of this role. Because of her combination of mobility, damage and defensive capabilities, D.Va is a very flexible tank pick that complements most, if not all, lineups effectively. Because everyone's opinion of what D.Va should be played as or like varies from bracket to playstyle, this section will simply talk about what you'd be picking her for and what D.Va is strong at within that category. If you're picking D.Va for her offensive capabilities, then you can easily make use of her great burst arsenal with booster and missiles, and consistent and annoying damage produced by her cannons, as they do not need to reload. Offensive D.Va players should aim to create danger zones for enemy players, much in the fashion Roadhog does in the area that his hook can reach. Good players will respect these areas, whereas lower elo players often won't. For D.Va, she creates danger zones on high ground areas that she can reach with her boosters, as it is here that she can isolate a target and burst them down before her often less mobile team support can save that isolated target. Characters such as Soldier 76, Widowmaker, Anna and McCree should position themselves on the high ground, and by doing so make them vulnerable to being blown up by a D.Va that notices them isolated. Maps such as Watchpoint Gibraltar, Kings Row, Hanamura and Dorado all feature common high ground areas that D.Va should be controlling to take advantage for her team. It might be easy for you as a D.Va player to attack and get on the high ground, but for most of your team they would struggle to fight someone positioned there, so it's your job to help your team out. Defensively, whilst Matrix now has a much lower duration, and as a result can't block as much damage consistently, there are still definitely opportunities not just to use her Matrix but her whole kit to defend your team. Matrix is still able to block major sources of damage pretty reliably, and when assisting characters in your team such as Reinhardt, Orisa or Winston, you can keep their barriers sustained for longer by matrixing large damage sources like Junkrat grenades, fire strikes or Roadhog right clicks. Body blocking is also an underrated defensive part of her kit. You can use boosters to fly into targets shooting at supports and DPS, and intercept the projectiles with your body if you don't have Matrix up, saving them from damage. You can also stop people from escaping by blocking doorways or corners, and that can secure kills, and also infuriate enemy players. Whilst I myself, and most of the other people that have helped me with this guide, play on PC, our number one console D.Va, DishonouredLombax, is here to give some advice for you console players viewing this video, and maybe you can copy some of his settings if that would help you. Controller bindings are entirely up to preference, and it is best to experiment with your own setup to create the most comfortable bindings for your playstyle. If you are curious though, here are a few bindings that Lombax uses, and you may want to use them yourself. Especially in the current meta, high sensitivity is definitely advised for console players, as it allows them to track agile characters like Tracer and Genji who commonly appear in most team lineups. Lower sensitivity does allow you for more consistent tracking, and is definitely up to preference, but Lombax uses dual zone 70/70 sensitivities that allow him to track more agile characters. Regardless of platform however, it is generally advised to use higher sensitivities on characters such as Reinhardt, Winston or D.Va, as you will need to flick your mouse around a lot more to catch off enemies with either shields, matrix or perform precise booster maneuvers. If you are running a higher sensitivity however, it's generally advisable to also run high aim smoothing to then allow you to track precisely when it is needed. Again, whilst console controller rebinds are entirely preference, just like your sensitivity and your aim type, Lombax prefers to rebind L2 or left trigger to R1 or right bumper, as it allows him to use Matrix in the old-fashioned way before the rework. Another preference of Lombax is to use toggle Matrix on. Whilst this is arguably less efficient, it allows him to go from matrixing straight into using missiles, melee or more precise aim or movement. Whilst I don't want to make this a full guide on aim, as it isn't specific to D.Va, your general goal in Overwatch with sensitivity and DPI is to go as low as comfortably possible to minimise pixel skipping and promote healthier gaming habits using your arm to aim over your wrist. That being said, at the end of the day, sensitivity and your preferences on controller bindings or keyboard bindings are completely up to you, and just because one pro player runs a certain sensitivity and DPI doesn't mean it will work as well for them as it does for you. Create your own sensitivity and DPI settings with what you like, as this area of the guide is only going to give general advice on how to improve your aim and make sure it's optimal for a gaming environment. Depending on the quality of your mouse, you may have additional buttons available to you to rebind. Binding mouse 4 to something such as your alt is great, and is a comfortable way to make alt combos without having to adjust your finger from the shift key to Q. I even remember hearing somewhere that someone specific close to me used their pinky to press Q, which is quite an awkward thing, and I definitely don't recommend doing that. Additionally, if you have mouse 4, mouse 5 can be used to melee, and that's what I personally used myself. If you don't have a fancy mouse however, there are a few changes that you can make to your bindings to improve your experience. You can swap buttons such as scroll wheel, up and down, to things such as alt, melee or crouch to crouch spam more easily or call your mecha when you need it. In regards to sensitivity however, it is advisable to keep your in-game sensitivity as low as possible to avoid pixel skipping. Make your DPI higher to compensate instead to reach the same eDPI setting. Having sensitivities in game above 4 are likely to induce pixel skipping. I've linked a tool in the description that you can use to check whether your current sensitivity and DPI settings can create pixel skipping in your game.